we talk about from the income point of view. The married filing joint return does not care whether one of the spouse has no income. Okay? But what about from the timeline point of view? Okay, here's the timeline. So normally it's like January the 1st, right? January the 1st all the way to December the 31st. Okay, that's a typical tax year. What about you got married at, I don't know, March, okay? What about you get married here, and then this is the end of the tax year, December 31st. What should you do? Right? If you want to do this the married filing a joint return, you can do that. Because basically you just look at this time, right? December the 31st. And at the end of that tax year, at that day, right, the last day of that tax year, are those like both spouses married or not? Okay? If they're married, they're qualified. Remember, it's qualified for married and filing joint return, but also they can file a separate return. Okay? They have the option. They have the right to choose. Okay? They can choose this, file jointly, or they can choose file separately. It doesn't really matter. As long as at the last day of the tax year, they're married. Okay? And if they're married at the last day, okay? Some like extreme scenario. They just get married, okay? But legally, they got married on December 31st, okay? Can they do that? Yes, they can. And you know what? The amazing thing about married and filing the joint return is that from this day all the way back to the January 1st, so basically the whole tax year, they're going to be treated as if they're married and filing jointly. Okay? Even though they get married at the very last day of the tax year, they're going to treat the whole tax year as they're married together. Okay? So yeah, that's the amazing thing about this. It doesn't really matter you marry in March, October, or December 31st at the very last day, as long as we just check the last day of the tax year, they're married, right? And then they have the right to choose the married filing a joint return or married filing a separate return. Doesn't really matter, but they're going to choose if they're married filing jointly, they can treat the whole tax year as if they were together. Okay, that's amazing. And what about some unfortunate scenario? For example, still, there's a timeline. What about, at a certain point during that tax year, one of the spouse pass away, unfortunately. Can they still, at the end of this year, right, December 31st, can they still say, well, technically they're still married, right? Even though one of the spouse unfortunately passed away, they're still married. So you know what? At that year, at that specific tax year, when one of the spouse passed away, as long as there's like a very big but here, but you need to make sure that the surviving spouse do not remarry. Okay, do not remarry. At that year, still, that surviving spouse still eligible to file jointly. Okay, so still can file as if they were married and filing a joint return, even though one of the spouse at that specific time, like December 31st, when you check, one of the spouses passed away at that year. Okay, but the surviving spouse did not remarry. Okay, so you know what? They can also treat that specific year as a married filing a joint return. Okay? Yeah, as simple as that.